All right. So what is a cult?
I feel like this question used to be like an easy answer. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So for example, if you're studying just religions at large, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would have defined every religion as a cult in like the historical, societal sense or sociological sense, and the fact that every religion has a systematic approach to their worship or to their religion.
Mm-hmm.
They have, rituals and rites and beliefs, and that actually would make them a quote unquote cult in a really broad definition. Okay. And so you would listen, if you're reading like historical academic works, they might refer to the cult of Christianity, the cult of Judaism, the cult of Islam. And they're not meaning that in like a negative way. It's just like these religions have a system of practice. Okay. That's our system of worship. Okay. So there's that big kind of broad definition. And then there's like within the Christian world, we would say cults are any group that kind of begins to steer away or move away from Orthodox Christian belief and tradition.
Mm-hmm.
So they've moved away from an idea of they claim they're Christian, but they would also say, but Jesus is not God, for example. Okay. So they'd have a very different understanding of heaven and hell, the kind of thing, like basic Christian doctrines. And so they're kind of moving away from that or departing from it. And then kind of the other part of it that would be kind of like normally understood was like that they believe that like you'd have a group and they would say, we are the only ones who actually have the truth, like the true understanding of the Bible.
Okay.
And you can only be saved if you're within our organization or within our denomination or within our church. And you go, okay, that's a cult. Because they're claiming some sense of exclusivity that all other Christians got it wrong. Only their particular group has it right.
All other Christians, not all other religions.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So to kind of define this within the Christian sense of what a cult would be within the Christian world.
Okay.
But then I feel like over the last 20 years or so, the idea of what a cult is has just like really morphed into this idea of anything that comes across as controlling or manipulative from leadership, kind of top down within an organization is labeled a cult.
Okay.
So for example, I'm in a church and I feel like their leaders or their pastors are being very controlling or manipulative. I might say that is a cult.
All right.
Okay. Instead of saying that's an unhealthy church, or instead of saying that's abusive leadership, I might use the word cult. Or, like the idea of like the cult of personality. Like I'm going to just build kind of my life around an individual is become a common phrase in, our just modern language. And so that's what I'm saying. And like the idea of what the usage of cult, I feel like has just been used just so much more than where it ever had been before.
Okay.
So you're just using like that's a cult, or you might say like the phrase that's cultish, like that, or that's like a cult. And I feel like when you ask like what a cult is, it's almost like you have to give this myriad of definitions of, in the broadest sense, it's any group that has a sense of ritual and belief and action within their worship, right? That's a cult,
right,
in the broadest sense. For Christians, it's...
So everyone's a cult.
So everyone that's in a religion is in a cult, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way. That's just like a sociological way, okay?
Right.
But then there's the idea of what for us as Christians, a cult is any group that claims to be Christian but has veered away from orthodox, belief and doctrine, okay?
Okay.
And then now I feel like it's gotten to that point of where it's anything or anyone that comes across as very controlling or manipulative, that's a cult, or that church is a cult because of this strong, controlling, dominating leadership style. So,
all right.
Yeah.
So everyone's in a cult.
Well, yeah, and you know what's interesting? Like, in fairness to, when you talk about cults, is like in early Christianity, like the early Christians were considered a cult,
right?
Because they broke off of Judaism,
right?
And they
followed a guy,
and they unquestionably followed this guy,
right?
Like that's kind of the
death.
Yeah, to the death. They did. And that's part of the whole thing. Like, when you talk about like a cult, like, you like the idea of being built around an individual that you do not question and they have all authority. Well, the early Christians actually did that. The difference is that they're saying they're following the true Messiah,
right?
Jesus as God,
which they knew was coming. And
correct.
Yeah.
So they're saying it's a fulfillment of Judaism, right? Not that it's,
right.
But the way it was seen at the time, obviously, is, well, they were just this crazy sect that began off of Judaism, that began to believe in crazy stuff. And they believed some guy rose from the dead, and, now they're going to follow him.
What a bunch of crap.
Yeah, exactly. And even the Greco-Roman world were like, this group's crazy, right? Like, it wasn't just the Jews. It was,
let's kill them.
Yeah, I mean, actually, because they saw them as stirring up trouble and problems and everything else. So, in fairness, even the early Christians were labeled that way.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's just that now, as Christians, we're saying, but we've remained and we've survived this long because it was true.
Because it was a really good cult.
We're the best.
The best cult.
We're the best. Absolutely. Wholeheartedly. We're the best. Yeah.
All right. That's cults.
Yes, sir.
That's a cult.
That's a cult.
All right.